And my guests are seated, so let me just introduce them. And then we get to the issues we have for this morning. My guests are Abdul Malik Kwekubaku, he is editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Yao Pong, he is a private legal practitioner. He teaches also at the Central University. Andrew Ejapa Mesa, he's MP, secondee, and private legal practitioner. Also, George Law is a private legal practitioner and former MP, not thy. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Good morning.
Great. Now, this is how we start.
But something, why have you decided today you have been very unfair to my brother Kuku.
Why?
He's been excluded from the legal.
All right. Well, so let's do this.
I have my street.
Let's do this. Let's go listen to President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo announce who will be the Chief Justice.
I have known Justice Sophia Akufo well for over 40 years. Indeed, she was my first junior in practice, as barristers call their work. She impressed me considerably with her hard work, her capacity for detailed research, her independence of mind and spirit, her honesty and integrity, her deep-seated respect for the rule of law, and her abiding belief in the sovereignty of Almighty God. I believe these are the qualities which sustained her brilliant career as a lawyer that propelled her to the notice of the first president of the Fourth Republic, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, who appointed her to the Supreme Court on 30th November 1995, some 22 years ago. She has been one of the leading lights of the court since her appointment, and her contribution to the court's work and the growth of our nation's jurisprudence has been extensive. She has enriched her judicial experience by serving with credit on continental judicial bodies such as the African Court on Human and People's Rights, where she ended up as president of the court. I have no doubt that Justice Sophia Akufo will be a worthy successor to Chief Justice Wood and uphold jealously the independence of the judiciary.
Right. So that is the president on who becomes the new Chief Justice. And in fact, the president also gives us a hint about what happens to her ladyship, Georgina Wood, who will be taking a bow very shortly. Now, I'd like to start with Kweku today. I hardly do.
Yeah.
And I do that for a good reason.
Yeah.
So, it started with the Finder on Monday, the Finder newspaper on Monday, suggesting that it could be Doche or Justice Eni Yeboah, and then left out Sophia Akufo. And then other media reproduced the same thing. Then suddenly we realized that there was an introduction. Sophia Akufo was in. And then later we also heard that Justice Atuguba was in. And finally, Sophia Akufo has been announced. What do you say?
Well, let's be honest. Those names that were pushed forward, with the exception of Justice Atuguba, and I'll explain why I say with exception, they're all amounted to credible speculation, apart from the fact that personally, individually, all of them have the pedigree in terms of the constitutional requirements and then the experience they've had on the bench. So it was like the president was spoiled for choice, in my candid opinion. Somehow, instinctively, I was for what I conceptualized as continuity and stability. the need for a certain cohesion. I instinctively wanted a woman to, replace Madame Georgina Wood. Not looking at who is better, who is not better. In my current opinion, Justice George is a great guy. I've read few of his judgments and things, and he's a great guy. Same with Eni Yabua, who is younger. And I was doing a certain scenario, apart from the stability and cohesion, I was talking about continuity in terms of the architecture. You have the president, the vice president, the speaker being male, and so bringing in the gender element, being a female, would cut a very nice picture for the governance structure at the very top. I discard the regional one because there's a little bit of inadequacy there. Yeah, I discard that in terms of the balancing. Where would central region be if it was Doche from the Volta region and western region? So that one I didn't think was a very predominant point. I thought it was a bit of a fallacy if you pushed it to an absolute level. But Eni Yabua looked at us and look, he's younger, he may be there for a longer period. That also has an inherent element of stability, even though I don't know his age. He's old.
He and the chair of the same age.
Well, they call it.
He's 1 month older.
But they will have
1 month older.
Okay, but they would. Atuguba. Why I ruled out Atuguba because of the time left for him, not for any political reason.
Atuguba and Sophia Kufu were both called, or were both appointed. Were both appointed to the Supreme Court on the 30th of November 1995.
Yes, and I'm told you lawyers, in spite of that, then if you want to know who is senior, you go back to look at when the person was called to the bar.
That's correct.
Or so, and I realized that Atuguba was called to the bar earlier. I have the records here, a year before Sophia was called. So in that context, maybe Atuguba is senior. But what I've learned through my own research is that seniority per se has not been necessarily the requirement for appointment of CJs. At all. And there are classical examples. Fantastic. In fact, Madame Georgina may be a recent classic example of that. You go into, we've had situations where you didn't necessarily have to be on the bench.
Right.
Go back to E.A.L. Banama. He was a senior magistrate in Kenya, 1970. He was brought out from there. He was not even a senior member of the bench here and made Chief Justice. Same with Archer, who had retired and yet was brought out from retirement and made Chief Justice. So really, the question of seniority per se on its own, standing on its own leg, is not a basis. So that's why it comes back to, at the end of the day, the discretion of the president. But to be honest with you, I'm excited about Madame Sophia. I've heard the points being made in terms of the critique, and there's a very weird point that is made about family tree, the blood relations, and it's difficult. My own checks shows that yes, there is a certain distant family link. She appears to be a distant cousin of the president, and I do not know what value to put on the distant. The operative word here is the distant. But why would we want to overrate that relative to her competence, her professionalism, her exposure, her experience? And interestingly too, she got onto the Supreme Court in 1995, right, when the NPP administration, Akufo-Addo, were nowhere in the governance structure. So really, I think that if you overrate that and diminish the other factors, then you'll be so unfair to her, and you'll be sounding very ridiculous. So having done a global analysis on the balance sheet, I think she overqualifies, if I should put it that way, for the position that she's been given. And hopefully she will continue from where Madame Georgina Wood has left on, and even improve on that track record.
By way of education, what do you tell our audiences who may not know why the argument in favor of Justice Atuguba is one that should not be something that we should haggle about?
Well, as I said, and I'm talking here of my personal thing. I've heard, if I'm wrong, you can correct me quickly before I make further mistakes. I appear to have made one already. You know, that he has limited time, less than a year, I'm told. And so I thought that that was not the best thing. Those who are looking at the election petition should forget that's not the basis. There are other judgments that he took part in that you'll be surprised. Look, in the constitutional case, the fast track case, he was on the other side.
That's right.
Am I right?
That's true.
Yes, he was in the minority, the initial minority. And then that was also a very significant landmark in terms of our judgment histories, judicial pronouncements. And so
Chachu versus Attorney General.
yes, Chachu versus Attorney General. And when it was overturned based on review, he was also on the side of the majority, you know. So if you're going to look at just questions of judgment, which I think is unfair to use, because sometimes it's dependent on the issues before the court. And of course it comes also with the advocacy that goes into the projection of the case. So to be honest with you, I took over my own stand was the fact that it was limited, you know, so please don't push far. People have come back to say that, but Madam Sophia too appears to be somewhat limited because they're talking of 2 years.
Right.
They're trying to challenge that earlier assertion one makes. 2 years is not exactly like less than 1 year. That's my view. Meaning the president will have another opportunity, people are saying, to reappoint, to appoint a new person. Yes, President Rawlings, I think, appointed 2 in his tenure as constitutional head of state. Well, Acha came from the unconstitutional era, 1991, but I think by effect of the transitional provisions continued into the Fourth Republic. President Kufuor appointed 3, and there were reasons for that. It began with Redu, because Aban died in office. Then Redu, ill health, retired. So Aqua came in. Aqua died in office, and then gave Mr. Kufuor another opportunity to appoint Georgina. So there were real circumstances. Would you say force majeure? I don't know. This may be an uneducated, uneducated point.
And Justice Pega was not happy about that. Because he was senior, he said that he had been even acting Chief Justice.
Let me tell you,
Atiguba has also been acting Chief Justice.
Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. And I have the records. Because it's true that if it's not a question of permanent appointment, if the Chief Justice is indisposed or maybe he's traveled out, the most senior acts. Is that not so?
That's what the Constitution says.
Right. Now, there was a time, and I have the records here, there was a time that the Chief Justice, then Aqua, I think, was indisposed and couldn't act well. So automatically, Pega thought he should be. And somehow, Justice Atuguba found a way of getting a lady, Apusi Regina Rose something. I'll check the record. But no. Apusi, the name is Apusi Siye.
She was the judicial secretary.
Yes.
Deputy, I think.
Deputy judge.
Yes. So I will subsequently show you the letter. And she wrote, in fact, Justice Atuguba was the one who wrote and asked her to put it in. No, Justice Atuguba wrote in his hand.
Right.
But the lady typed it and was to sign. And was to the effect that, look, the Chief Justice is not available, indisposed. The most senior is Pega, he's also indisposed. So circulate to all the appropriate authorities that I am now the acting Chief Justice. And Pega got wind of that and said, what the hell? What do you mean? I am not indisposed. I can act. So they had a fight over that. And then there's a letter from Pega to Kufuor for appointing him acting Chief Justice. It was full of praise for President Kufuor for having done him so much honor. You see, you know why the lesson I picked from all this? I realized that yes, you might be professional, you might be competent and everything. I think every justice prays that one day they rise to become Chief Justice. So there's an ego or personal element. That's one thing I learned.
That's the height of your professional.
Yes, so it led to this clash between Pega and Atuguba. At the end of the day, Pega won. He continued to be the acting Chief Justice.
I see. Interesting there.
Amazing, eh?
Now, lawyers, and I decided to start with the non-lawyer. See, as far as you're concerned, those who pitched Doche above all the others, would you agree that they had a most formidable point?
Oh, thank you very much. Well, without doubt, Justice Doche in recent times, at least from the judgments I have read, a large number of them, I mean, I cannot stop but admiring him, just based on the judgments he has written. And his personal disposition, very friendly, and I think by and large a lot of people like him. But I was worried that even though I hold the view that all the justices of the Supreme Court qualify, a few number will be selected, not officially, but by the rest of us, and making it seem as if others don't qualify or are not competent to be appointed. And I was worried, so I made it clear, I mean, in public, that everybody in the Supreme Court now as a Supreme Court judge qualifies to be appointed Chief Justice. And so I'm not comfortable with commenting on a select few. So let the president even take the names of all these people to the Council of State and let them, in consultation, choose one from them. Because then in the minds of the people, and you know, we don't have a very sophisticated society. In the minds of the people, even when they hear that your colleague has been appointed a high court judge, they think it's a promotion. It means that he is a better lawyer than you. That is why he is a high court judge and you are just a lawyer. Recently, when some of our colleagues were appointed notary public, it was all over. They because of their sterling performance as lawyers, they have been promoted above the rest of us. And I saw a book where a Nigerian writer has in so notary public. So he hasn't even become a title. All over social media, people were, oh, but what about you now? So when are you also going to be promoted? And also in our minds, when you start doing this kind of selective analysis of a group of people who all qualify for a certain position, you create the wrong impression. So yes, and I'd say that all of them indeed qualify. But touching on what Angu Kwaku finished, that's why I've heard proposals, and one of them that I want to share is what has been practiced in some states in the US. For example, Georgia, I think they still do it, the rotational system.
Okay.
So that each, let's say every 4 years, or in order that it doesn't coincide with the term of office of the executive, every 5 years, it must straddle the term of one executive. It should rotate to the next most senior. Because as we all agree, the ultimate goal of every lawyer is that he may one day become a Chief Justice. And so therefore, when you give the opportunity to everyone.
Really, the ultimate goal of every lawyer?
Well, let's say every judge.
Okay.
But every lawyer, well, let's say every judge. But I don't think...
There are lawyers who don't want to be judges.
Yeah,
exactly.
well, anyway, thank you. But so the point I'm making is that this will reduce this whole discussions that can sometimes reduce into making it divisive, regional, this ethnic, that. So the system is there. The first most senior starts, the next 4 years, automatically. We can still go to parliament.
There's a suggestion, and allow me as this.
Go ahead, no problem.
That if the NDC had one power, Justice Atugba would have been allowed to do it no matter how brief.
Well, I hate to do that kind of, engage in that kind of discussion, because it will make the appointment of the Chief Justice seem to be political. And I don't think it has anything to do with politics. But of course, that's why I'm saying that to enhance the independent nature of the judiciary, then we should leave the appointment to a structured system where it is rotational. After every 4 years, I know that the next person is so and so. Elsewhere in other states in the US, they vote. The panel of judges in the Supreme Court will vote one of their own.
In Kenya, it is advertised. You apply for it, and then you will go through a process.
Sure,
the public is involved.
But you see, it is important that we also emphasize the position of the Chief Justice. It is not anything extraordinary, quote unquote, because of the explanation I'm going to give. First, if the Chief Justice sits, even though the Chief Justice is the president of any panel, the Chief Justice can even sit in a district court. She has only one vote.
Yeah.
Everybody else has one vote. And the Chief Justice's decision can never prevail over the decision of any other judge. There was a case that I was looking at.
The Chief Justice, by order of precedence,
Yeah.
of the preeminence of the citizens of this country,
Under the Constitution,
will be the fourth most important person.
honestly,
and can act as president.
Honestly,
For a
sometimes I
while.
tell my
Yes.
students, I find it difficult to even understand what that really means in law. Precedent, or in terms of precedence, the president, vice speaker, and the Chief Justice. I find it difficult. We are all under the law. I mean, so I want to look at it this way. So, for example, Justice Redu was sitting in a case, Solly versus Mahama in Tamale, and then he had a telephone call that the Judicial Secretary says the Chief Justice says she adjourned the case in which he was about to give a decision, and that attempt to the Chief Justice to investigate certain matters. Guess who were the lawyers? Alajete and Nana Kufuado. Nana Kufuado was the respondent, or lawyer for the respondent, and Alajete was the lawyer for the applicant. And interestingly, when Redu got that information, he came back to the court and told, in the judgment itself, which I have here, that when I sit as a judge, the decision to adjourn the case or not rests with me alone, and I don't take instructions. Let me just read to you. This is Mahama and Solly, and another 1976 to Ghana Law Report, 99 to 115, 24th March 1976. And this is what he said: the power to postpone, from the head note, the hearing of a case in a trial day was governed by the High Court Civil Procedure Rules. It was a discretion vested in the hearing judge, and it was his exclusive prerogative. The power of the judge to adjourn the hearing of any matter was dependent on the justice of the occasion, and it was a judicial act which might be reviewed on appeal. The proper forum to make an application for adjournment, therefore, was in the open court. The Chief Justice's request for an adjournment had no legal force, and failure to comply with such a request by a trial judge had no legal consequences. This is just to show that. So
this is a High Court judge.
This is a High Court
ignoring the Chief Justice.
Yes.
Okay.
That is to tell you that they don't take instructions as far as the administration of justice is concerned, and in the course of dispensing justice. So those who are saying all sorts of things, afraid that there may be some dilution, I always say the best thing God ever gave us is an independent judiciary and independent-minded judges who also feel independent even of the authorities of some of the judiciary itself. And this is a clear example,
right, that
you, even two High Court judges, the Ampon case and the Dumodim, the Muntaka issue, two High Court judges differently said the decision of the president to asking the national BNI to set up a committee to investigate this matter, which they did, and eventually, as my friends will say, the complainant became accused, and they who were the complainant then were dismissed. The two judges said, Mr. President, you were wrong. They are to be reinstated. And the good thing also is that the executives have, over the years, recently, have respected the decisions of the court, however exalted, or however the position, whether High Court or so.
Right.
So let us all relax. Very little can be done in terms of undue influence or interference of the administration of justice.
I'll come to your expectations of her if she is eventually approved by Parliament, and it does look like it's going to be an easy process for her because the minority have given an indication that they know that without a doubt she's more than qualified. And I heard Haruna Idrisu, the minority leader, say that yesterday. So I come to what your expectations of her will be as far as judicial reforms are concerned. And we ought to note that she's not exactly got, 2 years to go. She's got like 2.5 years. She's got like 2.5 years. Because she turned 70 in December 2019. 2019, right?
Interesting. So that's almost 3 years.
Right.
That's long enough.
Okay. Now, what do you say to those who openly sought to campaign for people like Doche and Eninyebua? There are some people in the NPP who said people like Eninyebua deserve a certain reward, and this is how the president ought to have rewarded him.
Well, it was unfortunate. I think that any attempt to seek to preempt the president is unjustifiable. I mean, he has the sole discretion in accordance with the Constitution to make those appointments. And I had always believed in his ability to select whoever he deemed appropriate and fitting of the role. And he has demonstrated it clearly. Of course, there were people who felt that because Eninyebua had voted in a certain manner in the elections petition, and Doche had voted in a certain manner, then it was incumbent on the president, in accordance with the reward system that we all have become used to then appoint Eninyebua over and above Doche. Because at a certain point earlier in the week, they were the most predominant names that had come out. But clearly, the president had other ideas, and he as it were, swept us off and appointed Ms. Akufu, who is an excellent jurist by all accounts. So, well, I took the position that because the president is himself a lawyer, he's worked extensively with all of the judges. He's worked with all the judges. He knows their capabilities, he knows their qualities.
He actually disclosed that Ms. Sophia Akufu
was his first
junior in Chambers.
I'll be privileged someday to appoint my first junior as Chief Justice.
Haruna Idrisu says that there's some concern about that there's some legitimate concern about that your junior in Chambers is you are appointing your junior in Chambers now to become the Chief Justice. He says there's some concern, little concern about that.
Over 30, 40 years ago. I mean, but what else do you expect from the minority? They will always raise issues with every decision that the president takes.
But on this point, be fair. I mean, it's a minimal concern they raise.
Well, they're trying to raise conflict of interest issues. And that's what they're seeking to do. And you've heard people playing the tribal card in terms of ethnic balance, why Doche should have been, Justice Doche, my apologies, should have been the preferred choice other than Justice over Akufu. And subtle attempt at, throwing in some sand into the sugar that is become so sweet that people are happily accepting. But
I must say that Justice Emil Short, actually, in this studio, on a different show, endorsed Justice Doche for it.
No, I do not have any qualms at all. Or I would not have had any qualms if the president had opted for Justice Doche. He's an excellent judge. I've known him quite closely over the years, and I think that to the extent that the president, in his wisdom, felt that amongst, like Kweku said, he was really spoiled for choice, and so several factors had to engage his mind in ultimately appointing whoever he appointed. And I think that the gender argument outweighed all the considerations that the president had to take in appointing Justice Akufu as the Supreme Court judge.
Is it true?
I mean, the Chief Justice.
Is it true that the president, I know you deny, is it true that the president's choice was Justice Doche, but the party insisted at a meeting that it ought to be Justice Sophia Akufu?
Don't you think that if there was a party insistence in this matter, Justice Eninyebua would have won the day? because of the elections petition
Okay.
and the voting pattern arising therefrom. So I don't think that the party insisted in that. Of course, I'm not aware. I mean, I will not sit here and claim to be knowledgeable in all the matters.
And the decision actually is supposed to be absolutely that of the president.
Absolutely. And so I think that that argument falls flat on his face.
Okay. George.
Well, interesting analysis. But let me start from a very, let me say good morning to Achari, or all of you. Let's start from a very fundamental point. Something, it is clear that any lawyer 15 years and above, by the constitutional arrangement, can become Chief Justice of this country. So let's put that fundamental issue first. So really, it could have been anybody who fits that.
Is it any lawyer?
Ghanaian.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I mean that a Ghanaian lawyer who is worth his salt. The president has to make that.
No, there are qualifications. You said any lawyer who is 18 years.
No, I'm not saying 18
you know,
years.
at practice and above, 15 years and above,
yes.
is qualified.
Yes.
That's what the Constitution says.
Yes.
That it has qualifications, not just any lawyer.
What I'm saying is that's why I said that is, let's start from the most fundamental level.
Okay.
So if you are 10 years, you cannot become CJ per the constitutional arrangement. That's clear. Now, beyond that, the president has been given the power to look among that group and decide who he thinks will serve this nation best as Chief Justice. Okay? And he has done that. And like Kweku gave us the historical. Most our Chief Justices have not always come from the bench. There have been people outside the bench who have been picked and brought in. In actual fact, President Kufuor's time, it was even speculated that he was going to do Justice, what is it called? This guy's father, Queen, for instance. And if he had done that, he would have been coming from private parties to become Chief Justice. So it's nothing extraordinary. Now let's come to what the president has done. You see, we all know our judges. We all know our judges. And we all know that they are competent. We may not always agree with them. Okay? I mean, I have had the privilege of being in the Supreme Court where Justice Sophia Kufuor has been either a member of a panel or president of the panel.
And your most recent was the Muntie case.
Yeah, the Muntie case. So I've seen her at first, and I've read her copiously, and we all know what she's made up of. And I am excited that even people like, I've read from people like Nana Oilita, who is celebrating the appointment.
Right, because they were in chambers together.
Madam Betty Bodidrisu, you know, and we all know her level of independence, mindedness, and things like that. People don't realize that in the election petition, people were surprised the way she even reacted to some of the things with Chachu Chikata.
The election petition?
She was not. No, there was a case where Chachu Chikata was part of it. I think it was one of the appeals. And and everybody knows that Chachu thought, when Chachu was lecturing, she was a student then. So you expect that. But when she has to be firm, she's absolutely firm. And we all know that. So she comes to the job as a celebrated jurist. She's had international experience and all that. So nobody can sit here and say that she does not qualify to be. The point is that, yes, people are talking about anyway. I got a certain inkling that he could have got it. But because of the recent FIFA thing, maybe, just maybe, because it's for a 2-year term or so, maybe, and that's for me, it's a high-level international appointment to be made the international chair of the FIFA ethics committee. It's not a small, so maybe he would want to take that for now. And in future, if he gets the opportunity, so that we'd have killed two best people. So there are various factors that possibly had gone into it. Of course, the gender issue, I will not run away from that, because really, if you look at the structure now, we have a president, the vice president, then we have a speaker of parliament, and therefore it will just be important maybe to balance. So that also may have worked, you know. And therefore, in the selection, she was considered a primus inter pares for that matter. So that, but you see, people have said all sorts of things. People mentioned the family connection, other people mentioned the conflict of interest, everybody who raised an issue against that is also right. They also have issues. But two things. It's the hierarchy in which you put the issues that matter. Because nobody can run away from the fact that why won't people talk about family connections? Simply because the president himself just in the last election said he was not going to run a family and friends government. He did say that.
Katsi Alban Babin.
Well, whatever you put it. So really, when some people say, but you said you are not going to. So if you are appointing family by whatever stretch of the connection, people would think that, but you are not living up to what you have said. So
the judiciary is not part
no, listen,
of the executive.
You see, but
do you say that is a legitimate argument?
that is why I've told you that it's you have to consider it in the hierarchy of issues that people would talk about. If somebody talks about conflict of interest because your junior chamber and things like that, it's a legitimate issue. But is that a central issue? That's the question you should be asking. At the close of the day, I notice from even your own take this morning, at the close of the day, we must all rise above a certain parameter, when we have things to do for the benefit of the nation. I say that, for instance, when people talk about the family connection, I said, well, the president might have said that. Okay, but those of us, at least 4 of us here, have the rare privilege of knowing our justices as close quarters. And therefore, we should convince ourselves that nothing untoward has happened. And we count on Justice Sophia, to do us the honors. When she gets there, what she does is what is more important. And not just that. Sometimes the people, like I said, they may be legitimate, everybody.
What sort of Chief Justice do you think she'll be?
Well, I think that she will be a Chief Justice. I think she's a Chief Justice who is fair. She will be a Chief Justice who would continue reforms because she's a reform-oriented person, even at the bench. And then she'll be a Chief Justice that may give us some of the most not controversial, but she's somebody who doesn't think that it should be business as usual in the things that we do. She may want to introduce innovation in the way of doing things, and we look forward to all that to meet contemporary,
In my take, I spoke about her erudite rebellion on the bench, and I may have opportunity to share what I actually meant with about that.
But again, let me just end by saying that is why sometimes, as politicians, we should be mindful of the things we say. Because you see, when you say these things in the past, maybe on a political platform, when it comes to evaluating what you have done, and you've done it in good faith, it may come back to haunt you. Okay.
And his last encounter with him, recent encounter he speaks about of the Munti 3 has come up. And within that period, I heard something that got my respect for that woman, hit the peak. You can't imagine what she went through and the grounds that she stood in all of those situations. Now, what are your expectations of her by way of judicial reform?
Well, first of all, I think her own experience should be brought to bear in terms of the Ghanaian understanding. At the age of 45 or so, when she was appointed, she was considered young. And when I read from Mrs. Oyelite's piece, I think there was some kind of rebellion, quote and unquote. The same as Justice Atuguba as well. And they were just lawyers, not just, they were lawyers, if I should say so. It also means that a long period of experience in one area of this political system pays. And therefore there should be a blend between the so-called young and the old. Perhaps because of some experience that we've had where the so-called young people given position rather had to listen to the older people, and the expectation we had could not really be met. I think this should encourage her own personal experience, so that when there is such a blend over time, and I would recommend at least one of her judgments, which I always give to my students, is this interesting case of Gateway Worship Center versus David Sumbun Suo. Very interesting case in the 21st January 2009. You find it in the 2009 Supreme Court of Ghana Law Report. And she really developed, or I would say enhanced the development and evolution of the legal system. The subject called legal system. Trust, the subject called trust as well. And the depth of knowledge and the expression, the legal expression.
Okay. And
trying to answer one of the best lawyers like Ahinkra, our senior. I mean, people should read it, and you come to just one conclusion, that this is a perfect person for this position, in addition to all of this, and I still hold the view.
Right.
So I expect that, that in particular, the fact that, and there will be, I think already there are even 2 positions vacant. At least Justice Akamba went, and then the Chief Justice is also going. I think that will help. And then again, there should be a structure, architectural structure, that informs everyone, no matter the village or the community, the nature of the place, that this is a court. I mean, there have been concerns about a recent court that has been established in one of the places in Eastern region. And some are saying it's almost like in a garage of a fire service or so. I don't know how, to what extent. But that particular structure, maybe the Elizabethan structure, sort of, so that even if it's a small village, the moment the person gets there, the person knows that this is a court of law. That is one thing I'm looking. The structure is very important, and I've had cause to even question the structure that we see, which is the new High Court. But it doesn't really paint the judicial nature of a structure. But of course, you see the scale and all that. So in conclusion, I'm saying that we expect a lot from her. She's human in the first place. And we also expect that other people who are going to work with her will have to find a way to also adjust. People have got their own disposition when it comes to administration. She will also have to blend.
Right.
We also live in the society. We know expectation of workers.
Okay.
That is very important.
Right.
I will just ask that she really takes the welfare of the workers very seriously.
Okay. But you must also be concerned that you're going to have to miss brilliant rulings that we talk about, because she's not going to have the opportunity, the time to be able to sit,
one at a time,
a lot of cases.
Should not be too bad anyway.
Right, that's good. now he says, he refers to Nanaye, referring to her as someone who was, showed some rebellion of stuff. But Nanaye also talks about she teaching them discipline, respect for time. Do you expect that some of these things will be brought to bear in her administration?
Absolutely.
Which is also necessary?
Absolutely.
You were here how many minutes before time? And when I asked you, you said we're taking a cue from the president.
Absolutely. Yes, and that is a culture that we all should learn to abide by. I mean, if you look and listen to what transpired at the Munti 3 hearing, that was in a sense public.
And she has a sense of humor,
Yes, she has a very... It tells you the kind of person that she is. She is the no-nonsense type of person. And I'm sure that she'll bring that to bear in a new role. Experiences from the African court and all that to be brought to bear. Contemporary thinking in the law would inform, how she manages. She
presently is a vice chair of the African and Human
that's right.
Human Rights Court, right?
Yeah. And it was all these factors that the president considered in appointing her as the substantive CJ for the next couple of years. And I believe strongly that, having known her, of course, I've done some 14 years at the bar, and not too much of a active practice in the Supreme Court, but reading some of her rulings and attending some of her courts, I think that she has what it takes to bring some innovation into the administration of justice in this country during her tenure.
Some people say it might be a disadvantage that she's too much of a disciplinarian.
I don't see so. I don't think so. I mean, being a disciplinarian is a good thing. I mean, you know, the indiscipline that has occasioned the court system, the judiciary in the past few years. And NAS exposing and all that. They not really sit well with the
so you expect her to continue the fight against judicial corruption?
I endorse that entirely.
Right. Yeah. Fuga and Co. She appears to have worked there too. I didn't know that she worked with Fuga. And he also said, people have been sending a lot of praises. The Electoral Commission chairperson has also sent her praises about her and congratulated her that she will do very well. Nanoye has spoken about how they worked together and how she did a lot to help people like herself and Kwame Akufu and so on to excel in the things that they did, referring to work she did when she ensured the major expansion of the airports and also set up the Aviation Social Center. That's when she was chairperson of the Civil Aviation Authority. Yes, and that's at the point when she was nominated by President Rawlings. Nanaoye says that I distinctly remember the objection by late E.D. Combe. You have proved them wrong. And she worked with Mobile Ghana and then later set up the law firm Akufu and Co. And she says that you groomed us all in your law firm to become sharp lawyers. Sheila Minkampremo, Kwame Akufu and I, we had to be excellent, professional in our approach, punctual to meetings, and perfect. You excelled at the Supreme Court and the African Human Rights Courts. Justice Sophia Abena-Boafo Akufu. Congratulations. And then Fuga and Co. says that Mr. Fuga says that he's a founder of the law firm. Says that Sophia Akufu came to Fuga and Co. in 1977. Justice Akufu worked for Fuga and Company from 77 to 83, thereabouts. She worked tirelessly, and he gives us an example to tell us who she is. She was very intelligent and principled. Among others, they did recoveries. That's what the firm did. Recoveries for Barclays Bank, which required traveling to different courts in several towns, including Tamale. When Fuga, he needed an extra typewriter for the office, Sophia brought her dad's typewriter from home. That's the mark of a lawyer who will give 150% of her time. Kweku, how much of her time do you expect that she will give to administration of the justice system?
Well, let me be honest. I have very little knowledge about her managerial competence or experience.
Okay.
Even though I know about this civil aviation and all the rest, but I really never did any serious research into her ups and downs. As human, she would have had some challenges,
right?
You know, and within the judiciary too, I'm not too knowledgeable about areas that she's administered, and what the results were. You know, but I believe she would rise to the occasion. After all, Madame Georgina Wood also had to rise to the occasion.
Right.
There were people also who didn't see Madame Georgina Wood as the right choice. People, if you recall, attempted to use even her chairmanship of the MV Benjamin Committee against her. And there was early agitation for her removal in 2009 and things. But she proved everybody wrong. With great things that she's done. I expect, that's why I said continuity, stability, cohesion. I expect Madame Sophia Akufu to continue from where Madame Georgina Wood has left off.
Okay.
You know, after all, if you look at her NAS expose, she chaired one of the committees that handled the corruption findings, and Justice John Ajet Nassam.
Yes.
Justice Ernest Obimpe were casualties of her committee. One of them is in court, Ayisi Ado.
Right.
You know, but that shows clearly her commitment. She's now aware, she knows the evidence, she's seen the evidence, she's seen the reality, not the perception of corruption in the judiciary. I expect her to continue the commitment. Not too long ago, the judiciary signed a certain compact, anti-corruption compact, with the International Bar Association. I think the Ghana Bar Association signed on their behalf. It's all focused on restoring and deepening the integrity of the judiciary. I expect her, because of even her own involvement in this exercise, to continue with that pact and make it sure that it works. You know, we all know they may need the welfare, the judicial service. They complain a lot, and sometimes they go on strikes, and it affects justice.
It does.
I believe she should take a critical look at that area.
Okay.
You know,
so
I didn't want to maybe by your judgment, this were the letters I was talking about.
Okay, those letters
this one
that never got signed.
This is the typed one. The name is Georgina Wood, Judicial Secretary.
Yeah, that's correct.
And it was, as is known, the Lord Chief Justice George Kingsley Acquah unfortunately passed away on the 25th of March 2007. In the circumstances and as provided in Article 1446 of the 1992 Constitution, the most senior justice of the Supreme Court performs the functions of the Chief Justice until the vacancy is filled. Accordingly, in view of the fact that the most senior Supreme Court judge, Mr. Justice Francis Y. Pega, is indisposed, all writs of summons should be sealed and tested in the name of Justice W.A. Atuguba as acting Chief Justice. There should therefore be no disruption of the business and affairs of the courts, and its distribution to chief registrars in charge of all the courts in the country. Now this letter, you see, is typed.
Right. And that's the handwriting.
This one is the handwriting, and it's signed by W.A. Atuguba.
Okay.
But it was just copied, except the signature changed.
You see, to put that...
Wait, let's get to Pega's letter.
That letter is dated 25th of 25th, no, it's 26th of March 2007. Acquah died on 25th, the day before.
Okay.
Now, after that dispute, President Kufuor had to intervene.
Okay.
So this is the letter, 2nd April 2007, about 6-7 days later. And this is Pega. It says, "Rear appointment of acting Chief Justice. I wish to acknowledge receipt of your letter copied to me, appointing me as the acting Chief Justice. I'm sincerely grateful for the honor done me to serve my country in this capacity. Your Excellency, be assured of my services as required by the Constitution of our dear country. I shall be available at your convenience to call upon you as and when the need arises. May I take this opportunity to congratulate you on your appointment as Chairman of the African Union and the successful celebration of Ghana's 50th anniversary. Please accept my kind regards. Signed, Justice Pega."
And later he would rebel when Georgina Wood was being appointed because he felt that
you see, in fairness, you see what actually transpired, and I agree with you, right? Because I remember those facts. In actual fact, Justice Pega was
very brief. We got to move on.
He wasn't coming to work because he said he was indisposed. He wasn't even coming to work.
But when the
And so when the Chief Justice, Acquah, the expectation was that he was indisposed and that he couldn't even work.
So Atuguba may have done this in good faith.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So Atuguba assumed that, if the man is not well and the other one has passed on, let's not disrupt the system.
Correct.
So
he may have done it in good
so he did it in good faith. Only for us to hear that the following day, the man came.
The allegedly sick man was not sick.
No, he came with what is
right. But maybe in a minute, what do you say about the crusade also about the decongestion of the prisons, which the Chief Justice, current Georgina Wood, said she's even going to continue to commit herself to that project when she has retired? What should the new Chief Justice also be doing when we get one?
I think that she should. I think that the new Chief Justice should continue to support those efforts. And for me, it's great that Justice Georgina Wood has decided not to go and sit at home, but she wants to continue to serve in another capacity.
Justice Doche is actually also complaining that the way we incarcerate people.
So I think that the overhaul. We've been speaking about this for a long time. That our criminal jurisprudence system should have an overhaul. Community service and so many other things should be introduced to decongest automatically the prisons, and then so that we can make it a little more comfortable.
Thank you.
Just to say this, I think our Chief Justice needs prayers, the current woman.
Okay.
Because the last 3 could not finish.
Current one, or being the nominated one.
The current one. She's got about 1 month.
Okay, I see.
We have to pray that this devilish occurrence, if I may call it so, will be broken finally.
Wow.
So that we will not be affected by rating waiting. All these distractions came about. That's
in Jesus' name, she will finish.
Yes, she has
to. And actually, the president says that her seat awaits her on the Council of States. Okay, so.
Interesting.
Yes, right, the president says so.
Because that position still has.
It's vacant. There's no one to fill it. All right.
Interesting.
Great. Okay, so we take a break here. We'll return, and when we return, we are going to deal with some matters concerning. Do we deal with Galamsey first, or do we deal with Otiko and the Buri affair? Which one do you choose?
I think we should deal with Otiko Nabu affair, because Galamsey we've done over and over.
So we'll deal with Otiko. We agree with Kweku. We'll be right back.